During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10. So I told her, it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Realistic CEO podcast. Today I'm here with Amie Miarecki. So this is gonna be my first time interviewing a president of a nonprofit, so I'm actually really excited to learn what it is to be like a president of a nonprofit. So hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, it's nice to see you.
So the first question I'm gonna ask is, how did you get this position?
So I found out about this position from a couple of friends in the community who shared that it was available, and I was really interested in hearing more about it. So I looked at the website and then I went on and applied.
So what made you want to get this position?
Well, first of all, the reputation of junior achievement is excellent in the community, so I wanted to be a part of that. And once I did more research and found out all they were involved in and how it's a national and then also a global organization, it made me even more excited because I knew I'd have resources behind me and I'd have a lot of bandwidth and power behind me.
So how has your previous experience being in business, like top positions inside companies that you work for, how did this help you with this role that you're in today?
Well, I think first of all, it gives you the confidence. Whenever you've had experience, it always builds your confidence and gives you a base and a foundation to grow from. I also think just having exposure to a lot of different industries. So I've worked in nonprofits, I've worked in for-profit, healthcare, human services. They all meet right here at what we do for junior achievement because of the population that we serve. So I think it made a lot of sense for me to come to a nonprofit that focused on young people and serving a population that really needs to have resources and access to education.
Being the power to help the youth that needs like access to education, how have you been able to change like the way that you looked at a nonprofit like Junior Achievement?
When you're affecting change, you always want to make sure you're getting the pulse of the community. So one of the things I've done in the past 6 months since I've been here is really tried to meet with as many people in the community as possible to figure out what they're seeing as a need so that I can address that need. And then you can move that way to affect change. And then having my own background, my own experience, it just influenced even more of what I knew we needed to do in order to create a vision, a strategic plan, so that we can serve even more young people in the coming years.
So far, like in your first 6 months, of what has been like the most exciting thing that you've done so far?
Honestly, it was the 18 Under 18 Awards. I thought that I, of course, have never been a part of that before. It was the third year of the 18 Under 18 Awards, and I just think it's such a special event, an event that recognizes young people, yourself included, for your accomplishments. It was incredibly inspiring. Receiving the nominations and reading about what the young people in our community are doing made me have a lot of hope for our future. And then being a part of the event, seeing each of you get your award, the pride in your parents, and even just community members who didn't even know you, seeing them moved by your stories, I think was incredibly inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So talk about community. Why is community important to you?
Why is my community important to me? Well, I'm from here, so I always, I think it's important, I've lived in other places as well, but I think it's important that I'm back here with the experience I had living in the Boston area, because I now have even more of a deep respect for what we have to offer, including offer our young people, and what makes us special in Western Mass. So I think our community has a lot to offer. We can continue to build on our strengths, and if we're unified, we're going to do even more. And so I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of making Springfield what it can be.
How can we, as a community, grow to make it better, like how the vision that you see it?
Yeah, I think, it starts with working with young people, right? You guys are the future. And if we're going to affect change, we have to start with what is our future? What is our vision for the future? And of course, we want you to succeed. And succeeding means that you're going to have, your own thriving careers. whether it's starting a business or being part of one of the amazing corporations or nonprofits we have here, higher education. I mean, we have so many different places where people could work here. And also, I think starting a family or whatever path people want, I want our young people to really feel like they have resources here. Junior Achievement is a way for young people to give themselves the education that they need in order to plan for their future. And I think if we as community members that are older can invest in our young people, I think that's a really great way to invest in our future. It's a natural way to do that. But also when we're growing our network, right? So that's another thing that I love to do is just grow the community that I have in front of me. I'm always trying to meet new people, get new ideas, understand where they're coming from. It helps me really to build my own opinions, my own ideas, and it drives me forward.
So how can me as a young person network to help with the community?
It's a great question. So there are so many networking groups in the area. One that I am a part of is the Young Professional Society, YPS. That's an awesome organization. There's great chambers here. There's amazing trade organizations if you're specialized in something. And I think if you put yourself out there with the intention to make a real connection at every networking event you go to, you will succeed. It doesn't mean you have to make 10 new connections. It's difficult to do that. You can meet 10 new people, but if you intend to really connect with and do business with or make some sort of partnership with or just learn from one person, you're going to grow your network exponentially because you're always going to be evolving, right? And your personal and professional networks are a huge part of who you are. Who you surround yourself with is really going to influence the direction of your life.
So being that you're like a leader, so like what are ways that I could become a better leader myself?
Well, I think just making sure that you're true to yourself. So knowing your brand, or at least being able to be insightful enough to know that you need to grow your brand, right? And when I say brand, I mean just the concept of who you are and what you put out into the world and who you want to be. If you stay true to that, I think, and you always lead with that intention, things just naturally will flow to you. I think also, being a leader is about being a resource for other people. Being a leader is about having a vision and telling, people what that vision is and helping them drive towards it. But it's really about being a resource. So I think that's really important too, is when you have experience and you have knowledge, letting people have access to that is important too. And then I think also, being able to receive and give feedback in a meaningful way is really important as a leader too.
So like with being able to give feedback and receive it, how can I get better at communicating with others?
That's a great question. So I think, again, it comes down to what is your intention in every interaction that you have with others. If your intention is true to your brand and true to yourself, it's just going to naturally flow. So if you're looking to make a connection for your business, you got to lead with what your business is your strongest at, right? And what you are able to put out into the world is your marketing of your brand, right? Or your business. So if you just stay true to that, I think people will follow. The right types of customers or partners will follow.
How will I be able to build on those relationships to make my business or brand more successful?
Again, I think it just comes down to making the connection and following through with it. So if you're able to go into a networking event, make a contact with somebody, follow up with them, set a time to connect with them, and then continue to develop that relationship, whether it's through business or just maybe connecting them with other resources in the community. I think also one of the greatest ways that leaders in the community do it naturally is we connect people with other people that are leading, right? We're not afraid to stretch resources. So if I see someone in the community that's doing awesome things, I want to connect them with someone else doing awesome things because it's just a catalyst, right? It all can just come together.
So say like when things aren't like going as planned, like how are you able to get back on track?
I think, being flexible is a huge part, and being able to adapt is a huge piece of leadership. Not everything is going to go as planned, and you should probably have a plan B and C just in case. So just being adaptable, but having that mindset where you're going to look for the resources, know your resources. You should always know your bottom line, so that you understand, what you need, and then everything else is really just a want, right? It's a stretch. So you can continue to grow if you know what you need, because everything else is just gravy, right?
So being like a young person, how would I be able to help JA grow?
Well, you can be an ambassador. So one of the things I want to invite yourself and your cohort from the 18 Under 18 Awards to join is our youth council, our youth advisory council. I think that's a really important way for us to understand here at JA what our community wants, right? We have to meet the need, and we have to hear from young people. So that's something I want to start. And again, your 18 Under 18 class is a great start because all of you are entrepreneurial thinkers, you're all leaders, and you all have a pulse in your community because you're already involved in it. So I think that that's number one, is starting an advisory council. So if that's something that you're interested in, I welcome you. I would love to have you. And then just really being an ambassador, sharing the mission, letting people know what we have to offer. And, that starts even just for individuals. You started a business, you happen to have a great mentor in that, but other people might be able to be mentored by you, right? And they might be inspired by you. So I think those are two ways that you could definitely help JA.
What are ways that, like, say somebody might not have a mentor? Like, what are good ways to be able to mentor yourself in a way? That's
actually a great question. I think mentorship is something people talk about more than they ever did. And mentors can be up and down, right? So people can be your mentor that are younger than you, and they can be your mentor that are older than you. And I've actually had a couple of mentors that are younger than me that are able to just stretch my way of thinking and make me sort of think about things in ways I hadn't before. And I think that's a really important way to be a leader, is to be adaptable, be able to give it that feedback and take feedback, and have your, be an open thinker, be an open-minded person. So if you're, out there looking for a mentor, you can start by just reading and start by just building your resources. And then don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes people that you find inspiring don't even realize that you find them inspiring. They don't realize there's something special about them. So if you said to them, hey, I could really learn from you. Can I have a coffee with you one day? I don't know if you drink coffee yet, but they might be blown away that you have that interest. And then you might discover that they have a lot to learn from you too.
So like you said, somebody might not know. How would you be able to go and say maybe I find somebody interesting or motivational to me, and they don't find it in themselves? How would you be able to get that out of them?
I think, again, it's just sharing what you find special. So if somebody has done something that you aspire to do, obviously that's organic, right? That's something obvious. But even if it's just somebody that you admire in the community, just having, just having that conversation with them, going up to them and introducing yourself and setting that intention and just saying, hey, I found it really interesting when you gave that speech last week, and this is what I found interesting about it. And I'd like to hear some more. And asking for that 15 minutes. The worst that can happen is they say, no, I don't have time right now, right? The best thing that can happen is you form a lifelong relationship. And that has happened to me before in this community. I have definitely had the guts to say to somebody, hey, I know I don't know you well, but I've always admired you. Can I have 15 minutes of your time and buy you a coffee? And they're like, hey, I would love that. And so we became friends. And sometimes, like I said, they don't even realize that you're inspired or admiring them.
How have you been able to come out of your shell to be able to be so open to helping other people?
I don't know that I've ever had a shell, but I think that it does take guts sometimes. People that inspire us or we admire can be a little bit intimidating. Not that they themselves are, but just the idea of approaching them can be intimidating. So I think just, again, being really true to yourself and having the ability to say this could be the beginning of something good instead of looking at it as the beginning of a possible rejection, right? Just thinking of it in the positive way, I think would help.
So, like, from working with, like, in your previous jobs to now, what has been, like, the biggest lesson that you have learned throughout your career?
I think I've already shared it, but I'm going to just beat it again. I think being true to yourself. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. If you are doing your best and you really truly believe that you're making decisions based on the information that you have, the best that you can, that's really what you need to do a good job. And be adaptable, right? Just always be willing to learn and get feedback and grow from it. I think that is the hallmark of a really good leader.
So you keep on talking about being true to yourself and adaptable. Why are, like, those two, like, important keys to have to being a good leader?
I think because people look to their leader for direction, and it's not just in having them tell them what to do, but when you set a vision, it's giving people a direction to go to, right? So you've given them a point that they want to move towards, and so if you are wavering in that, how are they supposed to know how to get there? Right? Mm-hmm. And the other part about adapting is the same idea. If the road changes or something happens where you have a setback, you're still focused on the same direction. You're still giving the same message to the people that are you're leading, right? If you start giving them mixed messages, they're not going to understand what direction they're going in.
So, being a leader, like, what would you say to somebody that they might be having an off day and down? Like, how are you able to build up the people around you?
Well, first of all, it's all a mindset, right? So again, I think we have to be strength-based about ourselves, realistic, right? And know our own strengths and our weaknesses. And if we can say to ourselves, this is a bad day, but it doesn't make a bad week, or even a bad hour doesn't make a bad day, I think having that flexible thinking is really important too. Giving yourself the freedom to live in those feelings for a little bit, but not make it transfer to everyone around you is another really big piece of leadership too, right? So you can be a leader and have a bad moment, have a bad day, but then not put it out to the whole team.
Mm-hmm. So how would I be able to build a good team to work around me? Yeah,
knowing your strengths and weaknesses is a huge part, right? You have to complement each other when you have a team. Mm-hmm. So not everybody can be the same. You know, maybe that works a little bit, maybe it works for one project, but it's not going to work over the long run. You have to have people that balance each other's skill sets, and that comes with personalities too, right? You have to have a good blend of personality and talent in the room, and I think one of the ways a good leader can build talent around them is by understanding what their own weaknesses are. And being able to recognize that is a huge piece of it, and then being able to apply that and empower people to make decisions based on their own experience that maybe you as the leader don't have. It's a huge piece of success.
So how would I be able to do that?
I think you have to, well, first of all, you have to really, when you're interviewing for your team, when you're gathering your team, you have to really know what questions to ask. Mm-hmm. And make sure that you ask them about their experiences. How do they operate in a team? What do they need from a leader? Because if what they need from a leader is not what you're good at giving as a leader, that might not work either.
So saying maybe what I'm not good at for giving to them to be a leader for them, would, like, I still be able to work with them?
I mean, possibly. I think that's, again, you'd have to know your brand. Mm-hmm. If you know yourself really well and you say to yourself, all right, these are the things that I know I have identified as my weaknesses, and I could use somebody that can do this, and they come to you and you are interviewing them or you're part of a team with them, you might want to have that open conversation and say, listen, I'm still growing, I'm adapting in my leadership. I know that you need this from me. Please give me a little bit of time to grow, or tell me when I'm not giving you what you need. And I think that that's another huge piece of it, is just the communication and the feedback.
Okay, you said when you're interviewing, it's like to build a good team, you should ask questions. What is the type of question that I should ask that would be like the best for my team?
Well, if you're operating under the assumption that you're going to have a whole team, you want to ask them, how do they work in a team? How do they contribute to a team? If they're an individual contributor and that's really what they like to do, maybe being in a team isn't for them. But if there's someone who enjoys working alongside other people, again, are they open to feedback? Do they like collaboration? What are the things that they bring to a team environment? And then let it stack up and see how deep is your bench, really, right? I know you play basketball, you get that. Like, you want to see, where does every piece of the puzzle fit? And some people are going to fit really well, and other people are not. And so you have to be able to say, are you willing to adapt and change and grow, or do we need to move on, right? And that's okay too. But having that communication and being really comfortable giving that feedback, but also receiving it, is important.
So as a leader, how are you able to grow?
First of all, you have to be really insightful and introspective and continue to look at, what are the successes? How do I measure my success? And if you're not aligning with your vision, and you're not aligning with your true self and what your brand is and where you intended to go, then you've got to adjust, right? You've got to continue to adapt. And I think maintaining what your goals were, and you can move the needle, right? If you want to continue to move that benchmark, but don't settle, right? If you want to grow, you can't settle, and you can't settle with yourself either.
So, like, being true to yourself, how are you able to stay true to yourself, even though, like, the person that you're interacting might, like, try to bring out the worst in you?
Oh, we all have those days, right? I think the best thing you can do is just know when to let the other person have their opinion and leave the conversation. You can do that with dignity for yourself and for the other person. But I think exiting the conversation in the most dignified way is the best answer.
For example, like, say somebody comes up to you and, like, you're just being very positive and polite, and then they just come up to you, like, just nasty, negative attitude, just walk away. Like, how are you able to, like, just walk away with a smile, though? Like,
I'm sorry, I have to say it again. You got to be true to yourself. The other person shouldn't have any power over you, right? It's hard. It's very hard sometimes, because sometimes you do want to have the last word, right? But other times you're like, wait a second, I got to be the bigger person. And you realize you gain more not letting that person get to you, or letting that person see that they've got to you. An hour from then, you're going to be happy with yourself,
So how are you able to balance, like, work and, like, family to make sure, like, a healthy balance?
That's a great question. I'm still working on it. I think the number one thing is knowing how to prioritize. So what is the really important thing? For me, it's my family. My family is really important. But the second most important thing is that I feel fulfilled in my life. So you have to find a job where you can be fulfilled, and then when you get home, be able to separate yourself, be able to, like, compartmentalize those two things as best you can. So when you're in the moment at home, you're in the moment at home. And when you're in the moment at work, you're in the moment at work. And that's something I think any working parent is always trying to do. But again, it's just setting your priorities and being really organized. Time management is a huge part of being a working parent.
So how are you able to manage your time better?
So I love Post-it notes and lists, and I have to do them. I have a lot of calendar updates for myself and reminders. They're critical for me to be able to get things that I need done.
So say you have like a packed, busy day. So you use your Post-it notes to, like, as a way to, like, keep yourself organized to stay on track?
Yeah, every morning I like to, again, prioritize. What are the top 3 things that I absolutely have to get done today? And those things better be checked off at the end of the day. And if they're on the Post-it note, chances are I've given myself a little bit of leeway. Maybe they're due in a day or two, but I like to make sure that at least I am giving myself, like, a goal and setting that goal. And then have a couple other stretches on there. Some things that might be due in a week, and then just at the end of the day, really reevaluate.
So when you're having a busy day, it might be stressful. How are you able to stay on task to, like, just power through the day?
So I like to take little mini breaks. And that's actually another way that I prioritize is I know I'm going to do 20 to 30 minutes of really intense work. And then I'm going to spend like 5 minutes, doing personal emails or texting back a friend. And then it just allows me to not be thinking about texting my friend back for the 30 minutes I need to be working, because I know I'm going to allow myself that time to do it.
So having, like, all this experience in business, what is something that you would what advice would you give your 18-year-old self today?
Oh, that's a great question. I know, I feel like I should know this by now, but I think I would actually tell my 18-year-old self that not to take things so seriously. Because I think even now, it's one of the things I have to remind myself is it's okay to be flexible. Like, I know I was talking about being adaptable. I think those are two different things. Being flexible with yourself is something totally different. Adapting in your work is something you sometimes don't have a choice to do. You have to pivot. But when it comes to yourself, sometimes it's like, okay, I can give myself a break on that. Maybe I did the best I could with the information I had, right? It's something that I definitely would tell my 18-year-old self. You did the best, you do the best you can with the information you have, and when you know better, you do better.
So from like working, you worked like a couple of jobs like where you're like doing like very important things like.
Oh, thank you.
So how have you been able to use those experiences to be able to start your career as the president of Junior Achievement? I
think building on those experiences was really important, again, because I was working with some of the underserved populations that we serve here at Junior Achievement. So I already had an idea of what it would take and what the interests were, what the needs were. But then I think also just being able to mobilize the community. I'd had a couple of positions where I really needed to be in the community, energizing, and being able to get the community involved is a huge piece of what Junior Achievement needs to move the mission forward. We're very volunteer focused. And so I think just having a sense of what that takes personally, being out in front is really important. If you're a leader and you're in a position like here I am, where I am here at Junior Achievement, and you're not comfortable being in the community, the organization can't grow. Because your mission nobody is understanding what you're doing, right? You can do all the marketing in the world, but the leader has to set the tone. And I think just being in front of people and again, having them tell you what the community needs and then meeting that need is a huge piece of it. There's a reciprocity there.
So how are you able to set the tone when you are at these events?
I think it's just having that energy and the enthusiasm, right? Just making people aware is the number one thing. And then once they want to hear more, telling them how they can get involved, it just continues to bring resources to the organization that we really need to continue to grow.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. So
okay.
One question I want to ask is, what is something about yourself that nobody really knows about that you like to enjoy to do?
That's a great question. Well, I think a few people might know it, but I love things like crosswords and puzzles. I think I like to be active too, but I really do like to just relax or play board games. Like one of my family's favorite things to do is play board games together.
So in your last 6 months of being a president of the JA, what is something that you've learned that you didn't really know before?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I had a really good learning curve about learning about JA and all the programs we have. So that was something I wasn't aware of, just how much of a catalog we have for our curriculum. And I think, I'm not a teacher, I'm not an educator, so just really understanding the delivery that's best for each of the grades that we serve is really another thing I've enjoyed learning. So one of the ways that JAUSA helps us with that professional development is really having a number of different videos and things that you can watch to learn how the programs are delivered, and then just hearing from educators about why this program is important or what's the best way to deliver this information to young people has been something that's really been interesting for me because I've never had that training before.
Okay, so guys, this is the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to allow me to interview you, so thank you.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. All right, guys, bye.